In 2019, one of the most powerful men in America was locked inside a federal jail cell, awaiting trial for crimes involving some of the richest and most connected people on Earth. He was guarded, monitored, watched, and yet before he could testify, he was dead. The files he left behind would ignite one of the most disturbing scandals in modern history. Welcome. This is the Corporate Narrator, bringing you the most gripping stories out there. If you love deep dives and twists, make sure you like and subscribe, because the next story starts now. On the morning of August 10th, 2019, correctional officers walked through a quiet housing unit inside the Metropolitan Correctional Center. The unit held some of the most high-profile inmates in the United States, but one cell door stopped them cold. Inside, a man was hanging from a bedsheet tied to the bunk. That man was Jeffrey Epstein, and the problem wasn't just that he was dead. The problem was who he was and what he knew. Because Jeffrey Epstein wasn't just another inmate. He was a billionaire financier with connections to presidents, royalty, tech moguls, and Hollywood elites. And now the one man who could answer the biggest questions was gone. But what investigators would later uncover inside sealed court documents, known today as the Epstein Files, would reveal a disturbing world hidden behind wealth, power, and secrecy. And once those files started opening, the entire world started asking the same question. Who else was involved? Jeffrey Epstein didn't start life as a billionaire. He was born in Brooklyn, New York in 1953. His parents were working class. His father worked for the Parks Department. Nothing about his early life suggested he would one day move among the most powerful people on the planet. But Epstein had one unusual talent. He understood how to get close to powerful people. In the 1970s, despite having no college degree, Epstein managed to land a teaching job at the prestigious Dalton School. The school educated the children of Manhattan's elite, future CEOs, future politicians, future billionaires. Epstein wasn't supposed to be there, but he had charisma, confidence, and he quickly built relationships with the families of extremely wealthy students. Within a few years, he left teaching and entered finance. And somehow, without a traditional background, without a degree, he started managing huge fortunes. One of the people who helped launch his career was Alan Greenberg at Bear Stearns. From the outside, Epstein's rise looked like a classic American success story, but inside the financial world, people began noticing something strange. No one could clearly explain how Epstein actually made his money, yet somehow he owned luxury homes in Manhattan, a private island, private jets, and a social network filled with world leaders, including Bill Clinton and Prince Andrew, and countless other influential figures. But behind the scenes, something far darker was happening. By the early 2000s, Epstein was living in a massive waterfront mansion in Palm Beach, Florida. And young girls were constantly coming and going. Many were teenagers, some were even younger. At first, neighbors thought Epstein simply hired lots of massage therapists. But eventually, the truth started leaking out. Several girls told police they had been recruited to give Epstein massages. But when they arrived, the situation quickly turned sexual, and the girls said they were paid, sometimes hundreds of dollars. Then they were asked to recruit other girls. Investigators later described it as a pyramid system, victims recruiting more victims. In 2005, one girl's parents reported the situation to police, and suddenly, an investigation began. Detectives interviewed dozens of girls. Their stories were eerily similar. They described the same mansion, the same massage room, the same disturbing routine. And one name kept appearing alongside Epstein, his associate, Ghislaine Maxwell. Prosecutors later alleged that Maxwell helped recruit and groom victims, but despite the growing evidence, the case took a shocking turn. In 2008, Epstein faced federal charges that could have sent him to prison for life. Dozens of victims had come forward, But instead of a massive trial, Epstein received something extremely unusual: a secret plea deal. The agreement was negotiated by federal prosecutors, including Alexander Acosta. Under the deal, Epstein pleaded guilty to state charges, not federal ones. His sentence? Just 13 months in jail. And even more shocking, he was allowed to leave the jail for work release up to 12 hours per day. Many victims were never informed the deal even existed. Years later, legal experts would call it one of the most controversial plea agreements in modern U.S. history. But after serving his short sentence, Epstein returned to his life of extreme wealth, private jets, luxury parties, connections with powerful people, and for nearly a decade, the case seemed finished. Until journalists began digging. In 2018, investigative reporters from the Miami Herald published a series of articles exposing the original investigation. The reporting revealed something disturbing. The victims' stories had never disappeared. Many had tried for years to be heard, and now the public was paying attention. The story exploded internationally. Soon after, federal prosecutors reopened the case. And in July 2019, Jeffrey Epstein was arrested again, this time at Teterboro Airport. Agents searched his Manhattan mansion. Inside, investigators reportedly found thousands of photographs, some locked inside safes, others hidden in cabinets. The charges were severe: sex trafficking of minors. If convicted, Epstein could spend the rest of his life in prison. But something strange happened almost immediately. People began asking, would Epstein actually go to trial, or would powerful people intervene again? Then, everything changed. On August 10th, 2019, just weeks after his arrest, Jeffrey Epstein was found dead inside his jail cell. Officials ruled the death a suicide by hanging. But the circumstances raised immediate questions. The 2 guards assigned to his unit had reportedly fallen asleep. Security cameras outside the cell malfunctioned. And Epstein had recently been placed on suicide watch, but was later removed from it. Within hours, conspiracy theories flooded the internet. Some people believed Epstein had been silenced. Others believed it was simply a catastrophic failure of prison security. But either way, the one man who knew the most about the entire network was gone. After Epstein's death, attention turned to the documents connected to his case: depositions, witness testimony, flight logs, court records. Many had been sealed for years, but gradually courts began unsealing portions of these records. They became known collectively as the Epstein Files. And inside them were hundreds of pages of testimony, victims describing what they experienced, witnesses describing Epstein's social circle, references to powerful individuals who had crossed paths with him. But the documents also revealed something important. Being mentioned in the files did not necessarily mean involvement in crimes. Many names appeared simply because they were questioned or referenced during testimony. Still, the revelations shocked the public because they showed how Epstein had embedded himself in the highest levels of society: politics, finance, academia, royalty, for decades. And somehow, his crimes continued largely unchecked. While Epstein was dead, the legal consequences didn't stop. In 2020, authorities arrested Ghislaine Maxwell. She was accused of helping Epstein recruit and exploit underage girls. Her trial began in 2021 in federal court in New York. Several victims testified. They described how Maxwell gained their trust, how she normalized the situation, how she helped facilitate Epstein's abuse. In December 2021, the jury delivered its verdict. Maxwell was found guilty of multiple charges. In 2022, she was sentenced to 20 years in federal prison. But even with that conviction, many questions remain unanswered. Who else knew? Who else participated? And how did Epstein operate for so long without being stopped? Today, Jeffrey Epstein's private island in the U.S. Virgin Islands sits largely abandoned. The mansions where powerful people once gathered are quiet. The jets that once carried billionaires and politicians are grounded. But the files remain. Thousands of pages of testimony, records of flights, depositions, evidence. And while investigators continue reviewing them, the central mystery of the Epstein case still lingers. Because Epstein's story isn't just about one man, it's about power, it's about wealth, and it's about what can happen when someone becomes so connected that the rules no longer seem to apply, until suddenly they do. But by then, the truth may already be buried, along with the man who knew it best.